Make sure you guys hit the subscribe button if you guys are enjoying the content that we're throwing up. And make sure you guys hit the like button if you enjoy the video. And yeah, let's begin. Okay, what's going on, guys? This is Rob, and today we were going to release Excalibur, I think it was, as the second video, or one of the X-Men Dawn of X videos. I think this is more important. I was thinking about Doomsday Clock number 12, and I was thinking about all the things that led up to Doomsday Clock, and the more I thought about it, the more I thought there was this thing that DC did not really explain, or at least it didn't seem like they explained. And it was basically why Dr. Manhattan could not see past Superman, right? If you go back and you look at all the old Doomsday Clock comics, right, issues 1 through 11, the overarching theme was that at some point, like, it seemed like a fight was going to break out between Superman and Dr. Manhattan, that Superman was going to lunge at Manhattan, and then he looked like he was going to punch him, and in that moment, everything went black for Manhattan. And the question was, why couldn't he see past Superman? Like, why couldn't he see beyond Superman to whatever it was that was going to come next? And it was kind of intriguing, because I kept thinking about this and thinking about this and thinking about this. And I think the answer is a lot more obvious, you know, insofar as what went on. And maybe it's just one of these things where it's like the overly obvious answer that I just didn't pick up on. And that kind of seems to be the case, but it was intriguing to me because I was like, why can't he see past him? And so I kept thinking about that, right? And I went back and read issue number 12, and I was like, maybe we could find an answer here. And I was looking through it, and I didn't see one, right? Like you get the moment where Superman comes lunging towards Dr. Manhattan, but it's to basically defend Manhattan from like somebody else. But at the same time, it's kind of like, okay, but like, why do things go black? That was the question I couldn't find an answer to. So I'm in Lexington for the week of Christmas, and I'm hanging out with my editor Gordon, and I'm hanging out with Mariah, and we're driving out to somewhere. I don't remember where it is that we're going to, but we're driving there. And Mariah picked up issues 11 and 12 of Doomsday Clock, and she's reading through issue number 12 because I'm proposing this question to them, right? And I'm like, maybe I missed something. So Mariah's combing through the comic. We went to Comics Interlude over on Waller Avenue, for those of you guys who are familiar with that. You know, she's flipping through the comic. She's like, no, I don't really see anything that says it explicitly. And I was like, that's what I thought, right? There's no clear-cut explanation there. And then her and Gordon actually came up with a really good explanation, kind of going back and forth with each other and talking about it. And the idea was that the reason why Manhattan couldn't see beyond Superman was because Manhattan made a choice. And it was one of the coolest things, right? It was like, dude, this is a really, really cool idea, right? So bear with me on this. When you look at Manhattan throughout DC Comics and look at him through like the Watchmen comics, right? You look at him through the lens of the Watchmen. Manhattan, despite all of his vaunted power, is a slave to time, right? That's the way this whole thing works, is that Manhattan perceives time insofar as the past, the present, and the future are all happening simultaneously, right? Now, it's only in relation to himself, right? Only in relation to what's happening to him, right? So he doesn't really see the past, the present, and the future in terms of how it affects some guy on the other side of the world throughout like his everyday life. It doesn't really work that way, right? He can't really like jump back and forth through time. So he can't leave the current moment and then like travel into the past and then like do his thing. His powers don't work that way. And so it's like, okay, so like if that's the case, like he never really acted, never really cared, because in his mind, everything that he sees in the future is going to happen, right? There's no way to get around it. There's no way to get past that. Things are irrevocably locked into that future. And so as a result of that, it was just kind of like, you know, like humanity's going to go to war. These things are going to happen. But we saw that kind of play out with like the Watchmen comics, right? Like he couldn't see past this one particular moment that was going to take place with like Ozymandias and everything. Now, of course, that ended up being like the giant monster that's released and all hell breaks loose and so on and so forth. But it was interesting because if that was the case, if Manhattan is himself a slave to time and he just kind of looks at the future and says the future is etched in stone and it cannot be changed, then what happens when he encounters a circumstance where the choice of what comes next is explicitly left to him and nobody else? It's left to only him and nobody else, right? Like he determines what comes next. And that's kind of the cool thing, is because he had made these changes over the course of the DC timeline, right? He moved the Lantern away from Alan Scott, and so Alan Scott didn't get the Lantern when he was supposed to, and instead he died in the train crash. And as a result of that, he never became the Green Lantern and the JSA never formed. You know, because of that simple action, all the way up to the 31st century, the Legion of Superheroes never existed, right? So you see all these little things that go on, this huge cascading effect that starts with a simple thing. And all of it was predicated on the idea that Manhattan looked at the entire time stream and said, well, if the Flash Barry Allen could travel back in time, save his mom's life, and then create a whole new universe as a result of that, and if somebody like the Anti-Monitor can wipe out most of the positive matter universe, get into a conflict with the Spectre, and by virtue of their actions lead to the destruction of the current universe and the formation of a new one, right? You know, if Superboy Prime can punch his way out of the Paradise Dimension, send ripple effects that basically alter reality, and then the multiverse can be reborn by the actions of Alexander Luthor, then why can't I change time? And if I can change this universe on a fundamental level by altering a couple things here and there, then what would that look like, right? How would those things unfold? And under normal circumstances, that would have just continued on, whatever that timeline was going to be, right? However it was going to unfold. Had Manhattan not set everything back, it would just kind of continue on and continue on and continue on. And as the reader, we were expecting Superman to lunge towards Manhattan and punch him and kill him, or Manhattan to just wipe everything out of existence, or whatever the case was. But in that moment, when he's watching everything go down with Superman, and when he's inspired, and Superman literally tells him, he's like, maybe this darkness that you see, maybe it takes everything that you have to save the world. Maybe you make that choice. Then it's basically, you're making the choice to fix everything. You're making the choice to undo the changes that you made to the timeline, and to basically allow things to progress as they were supposed to. That seems to more or less have been the case, and that's why he couldn't see past Superman, is because Manhattan didn't know that when this conflict happens, he was going to make a choice between either allowing the timeline to continue on, or to go back and change things and set things back to the way they're supposed to be. He didn't know which choice he was going to make, because he didn't know he was going to make a choice. And because that future was not guaranteed, because the future of the DC universe hinged on whatever choice he made, there was no absolute future there, right? Because that choice hadn't been made. It was basically a fork in the road. And Manhattan couldn't really see past the fork in the road because he didn't know what choice was going to be made. And so when he gets to that moment, then it turns into, okay, well, let's go back and undo all the things that we've done. And in turn, everything goes back to the DC universe as it was, really kind of perfecting or giving us this full totality of the blend between the New 52 and the pre-New 52, right? So the return of the Justice Society of America, the Legion of Superheroes does this thing, and so on and so forth. But I don't know, maybe this is one of those glaringly obvious things that all of you guys picked up on as soon as you read the comic. And I'm like the only one who didn't get it, which is entirely possible, right? But it's cool, because if that's the case, that's genius writing on behalf of Geoff Johns, right? Like that's genius writing, to take a character like Manhattan, who always looked at time and kind of had this idea that he was locked into it, that time couldn't be changed, and then to basically alter it and to kind of make this choice to be inspired and to make this choice to basically correct things. It's cool, right? Because like Geoff Johns always wrote his stories in such a way to where they tied into like the real world, right? Like the emotional spectrum is a reflection of the real world, right? Like we all feel rage, we all feel like greed, and we all feel anger, and love, and we feel like hope and different things like that. So this is like the fundamental emotions of humanity, right? That come in the emotional spectrum and the Green Lanterns, and all that's predicated on his own personal experiences, as well as things that would be relatable to the reader, right? And so as a result of that, it makes sense to kind of taking that sort of emotional tie-in, right? Like taking that personal vested interest and then applying it to the comic, and then sort of shining Manhattan in a way that we would look at him, right? And say, okay, so like we've all been in that situation where we feel like we don't have control of our own lives, like we're in the passenger seat of our own life, and whatever future is coming for us cannot be changed, and there's nothing we can do to alter the course in which our life is on. It's cool to kind of introduce that concept, into the comic, and to say, but you can though, right? Like you can at any point just stop and like get out of the car, or get in the passenger, or get in the driver's seat of the car and take control of your life. It's cool to see that kind of metatextual commentary thrown in. But again, I don't really mean to come across as like I'm the sole person who figured this out, and that may not even be the right answer, right? I mean, it's just, I think that's one of the great things, is there is a kind of possibility there, because it's intriguing, it's kind of awesome the way this whole thing plays out. But I don't know. I mean, let me know what you guys think, right? Let me know if you guys think I'm just being like a pompous ass, or if it's something that seems to be legitimate, right? Because I thought it'd be interesting that Manhattan couldn't see past Superman because Manhattan didn't know he was going to be faced with a choice, and whatever comes after that blackness that he saw would be a result of the choice that he made, not knowing he was going to have to make a choice. And so it's cool. I really dig that. But anyway, guys, we're gonna go ahead and bring this video to an end. Just figured I would throw my thoughts out there and just kind of see what you all think. I love hearing from you all. I love hearing your all's thought process. And yeah, we're gonna bring this video to an end. If you are new here to Comics Explained, make sure you guys hit the sub button to become part of the Rob Corps. If you guys enjoyed this video, make sure you drop a like, and I will catch you all later. Peace. We've got some new patrons in our top tiers over on patreon.com/comicsexplained. I want to give a shout out to Jason C, Austin S, Austin H, Philip, and Austin B, as well as Steven Z, Eagle F, Joey M, and Jeff R, as well as Genosis 916. As always, we just usually keep the last name to an initial. It helps you guys to maintain your anonymity. Some of you guys have expressed concern about having like your first and last name thrown out there for the world to see. I do not blame you. For you guys who have joined up as part of our Patreon tiers that are eligible eligible for RobCore Honor Guard rings. Those whose rings have been sent out, you should already have them. If you're a new person who just joined up and you've been part of this tier for a month, your ring will be mailed out to you. So I want to say thank you guys for being patrons.